The time is at hand.
The elusive dog-like creature attacks livestock, bleeding them dry of blood.
8 to 10 feet tall, shadowy aliens.
But I am telling you right now,
we need a great reset.
And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
Babylon the Great is fallen, is fallen.
Well, hey there. Welcome to In Dark Places. I'm your Huckleberry, Junebug Fugit. Do you have any local legends in your town? Little urban legends? We had a bit of one when I was a kid. I never really heard it said by anyone else, but on September 22nd, 1977, there was a plane crash on top of a mountain here. It was a local doctor, Dr. Robert Chu. He was a surgeon here, and he was the co-owner of the Williamson Memorial Hospital. He died in the plane crash right on top of a mountain here. And when I was a kid, a lot of the other kids would talk about it, and they said that he was decapitated, which could have been true. I don't know. Never really looked that much into it. And his head was never found. And the airplane was still sitting up on top of the mountain, and his head was there somewhere in the vicinity of the airplane. So when I was a kid, we were all for the Goonies, so that was going to be our little Goonie adventure. We wanted to go up to the top of that mountain and find that airplane and that guy's head. But it turned out being a different mountain altogether, and I guess that's why we never could find it. But my dad witnessed that plane crash. He would do plumbing work on the side from his regular plumbing job. He was basically the best plumber in Williamson. And he was out doing a job after he got off work. He always worked. And he was in my little village of Chatteroy, right up the road from where I live. And he saw the plane coming down, making a terrible noise, and it hit the top of the mountain right there where he was at. A few minutes later, a bunch of local guys in the neighborhood there took off running up into the hills there, up to the top of the mountain, and they found the body of Dr. Chu, killed in his plane crash. And his plane is still there to this day. And I've been wanting to find that since I was a kid, and a Goonie and everything. But I was looking on the wrong mountain back then. But I know the mountain where it is now, and it's basically the mountain right behind my house, where I live now. I went out looking for it 4 or 5 times and never could find it. I looked on Google Images and found something sitting on top of the mountain that kind of looks like it could be an airplane. Maybe one of these days I will find that plane, though. It's not any big secret. Like, people know where it is. I just don't. But I don't know if there's any truth to the urban legend or not. That was my whole point. It's funny how little stories like that get all twisted and there's a ghost and everything like that involved. But yeah, I just thought that was fun. And now here's a look at what's going on in the news this week. This story was sent in by Executive in Charge, Paul Chadwick. Thanks, Paul. MH370, 10 years on. What we know and what we don't about the vanishing Malaysia Airlines jet. By Simon Calder. Thanks, Simon. Late at night on March 7th, 2014, 227 passengers and a dozen crew members boarded a Malaysia Airlines Boeing 777 at Kuala Lumpur Airport. They were expecting to travel overnight to Beijing on a flight designated MH370. That flight number has become shorthand for the deepest mystery in aviation history. The relatives of the victims have endured 10 years of not knowing the fate of their loved ones Shortly after midnight on March 8th, local time, air traffic controllers lost contact with the jet while it was over the South China Sea. Over the following weeks, painstaking analysis of radar tracking and a succession of satellite pings showed that the jet veered off course and flew west over the Southeast Asia Peninsula before turning south over the Indian Ocean. When a passenger aircraft disappears over the sea, there is a well-established method of finding the plane, calculating the likely path, looking for debris on the surface of the water, and searching the seabed in a narrowly defined area. The flight data recorder and cockpit voice recorder of MH370, together with deducing who was on the flight deck, may provide equally valuable evidence about the fate of the aircraft, and more importantly, provide some closure for the families and loved ones of the victims. Yet finding the aircraft has defeated the entire transport safety community. Inevitably, the vacuum has been filled with speculation. Many theories are easily dismissed. A North Korean missile did not down MH370, and nor is the aircraft hidden in a hangar in Kazakhstan. But that leaves an ocean of possibilities. There were actually more than 239 people on board the Boeing when it took off from Kuala Lumpur. Communication with air traffic controllers was lost, possibly deliberately. Did someone deliberately divert the aircraft and crash the 777 into the sea, or did it simply wander off course and run out of fuel? Locating the lost aircraft could help to solve the mystery, but after 10 years and 2 exhaustive seabed searches of a patch of the Indian Ocean, all there is to go on is a scattering of debris washed up on beaches. We always talk about our weird synchronicities on the show. So, we have some synchronicity news. After Paul sent that story, he realized that we had recently uploaded a classic episode of the Haunted Chronicles on YouTube. And by the way, if you're not subscribed to the Haunted Chronicles YouTube channel, you should do that. So Paul realized that it was kind of synchronistic because we just uploaded a classic episode of the Haunted Chronicles on YouTube entitled Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Whenever he found that news story about the disappearing Malaysian airline flight. And we're like, synchronicity. And then it dawned on me that I had recorded that bit in the intro about the headless doctor who died in a plane crash. And Paul didn't know anything about me recording that little bit, and I had forgot about uploading the episode of Haunted Chronicles, so we had a little double synchronicity there. So, due to the irony of it all, this week on the show, we have creepy airplane stories. The Royal Air Force Museum, Cosford, is a museum dedicated to the history of aviation and the Royal Air Force in particular. The museum is part of the Royal Air Force Museum, a non-departmental public body sponsored by the Ministry of Defense and a registered charity. The museum is spread over 2 sites in England. The other site is at the Royal Air Force Museum, London, near Hendon in North London. It was opened on May 1st, 1979. The museum is home to a unique haunted item, a Lincoln bomber. The aircraft was built as a successor to the Lancaster bomber, but was introduced at the end of 1945 and therefore saw no combative use in the Second World War. However, since the 1980s, there have been accounts of unusual phenomena surrounding the plane. Someone moving inside the plane has been reported from those looking from the outside. The sounds of a rear plane door opening and footsteps inside have been heard. Although nothing was seen, voices have also been heard. Finally, a potential accident to a mechanic who was working on the plane was averted when his fall was allegedly stopped just above the ground by something unseen. see a lot of stories of airline pilots seeing UFOs, like this one by Tim Banal. Commercial pilot reports puzzling orange UFO spotted during flight. A commercial pilot flying from Massachusetts to Pennsylvania reported seeing a puzzling orange-colored UFO that performed a fantastic maneuver in the sky and then seemingly flashed at his aircraft several times. Details of the intriguing sighting were captured in a remarkable recording that featured the witness detailing the incident to an air traffic control operator during the February 12th flight.
Well, you're going to think I'm crazy. There's something that just went from right to left to right in a blink and then flashes lights 3-4 times and vanished.
Okay, well, I had an airplane cross from right to left, E-175, and now there's another one, 777 up there high off the right side that's descending to 28. That might be those two aircraft, I'm not sure.
This thing went 180 degrees in like a second.
Oh, goodness. All right. Yeah, let me know if you see it again. We'll make a report.
Well, the details, it literally went from one coast to the other in front of us, and then it went up like 30 degrees, turned off its lights, or whatever it had. It looked like it's a bright orangey thing, and then since we spoke to you last, it flashed us like 3-4 times, and we are still looking at it now.
So where is it roughly if I was to give you a traffic call?
I would say probably 60, 80 miles in front of us, and it looks like it's coming, I don't know, it's flashing towards us, but it is definitely not an airplane. It doesn't have a strobe lights or anything on it. It's just this bright orange going on and off. Yep, this definitely wasn't an airplane.
We've been talking about all these demonic possessions and crazy people on passenger jets and stuff like that here in the last year or so on the show. And then this happens. Tourist allegedly tried to open plane's emergency exit door after he believed he was being stalked by underground organization. By Richard Polina. Thanks, Richard. A Canadian tourist who suffered a panic attack and believed he was being stalked by an underground organization on a packed passenger plane allegedly attempted to unlock the emergency exit door during takeoff. Wong Sai Hong, 40, was arrested Wednesday after he frightened fellow travelers when he tried to exit the Airbus A320 as it was departing from Chiang Mai International Airport in Thailand at around 9 p.m. local time, according to Nation Thailand. Moments after the doors had been sealed and the aircraft was lining up on the runway, Hung began to scream and allegedly demanded a flight attendant open the door on Thai Airways flight TG-121 so he could exit the aircraft. As the flight attendant refused to comply with Hung's manic demands, he bolted toward an exit behind the cockpit. Soon after, law enforcement stormed onto the plane and arrested the crazed tourist. All the passengers and pilots and crew members were safe, the airline told the outlet. The tourist's outburst also disrupted other arriving flights, which had to wait in a holding pattern in the sky due to the active scene on the runway. Wong was charged with acting in a way that would imperil an aircraft and then taken to the Phoping Rajuvan police station for questioning. Wong, who told the police he worked as a computer engineer in Vancouver, explained that he suffered from a panic disorder, which was triggered before the plane was set to take off. A translator for the Canadian told the police that Wong was fearful he was going to be attacked, adding that he was being stalked by an underground organization, the outlet reported. That fear then allegedly led him to open the door so he could jump off the aircraft. After TG-121 was returned to the gate, Thai Airways said the plane took off for a Bangkok airport at around 12:30 the following day. Wong's alleged manic episode was only 2 weeks after Air Canada passenger in a state of crisis attempted to open the door during a flight from London to Toronto which forced fellow passengers to restrain him. In another frightening incident on January 10th, a passenger on a different Canadian airline flight opened the plane's door and fell to the tarmac while boarding in Toronto for a flight to Dubai. The man suffered minor injuries and was taken to a local hospital after the incident, which resulted in a 6-hour delay. And I mentioned it before, but what's the deal with these airplanes? Haunted Bromley ghosts in Biggin Hill. There's a guy that works for Pepsi. He's a vendor at my store, and his nickname is Biggin because he's a big guy. I'm 6'4", and I think he's like 6'6", and he's a little husky. One of the most haunted locations in the borough of Bromley is said to be the Biggin Hill Airfield, writes Neil Arnold. Thanks, Neil. For many witnesses have come forward to report having encounters with spectral airmen, who in most cases fade from view once observed. The specters have been seen in some of the lanes surrounding the airfield and also in houses built on the old airfield. It has long been considered that such pilots like to still linger at the airfield, as it may have been the last place they were at their most happiest, although it could also be surmised that such airmen are in some type of limbo, their image replayed back to those susceptible enough to see them. The same could be said for the phantom Spitfire that has been heard above the airfield. Those fortunate enough to have seen the plane claim it performs a victory roll before completely disappearing. The spectral airmen, however, are not simply confined to the airfield. There have been numerous reports from Hayes Lane, Vincent Square, Chatterton Road, and Addison Road of such spirits. One of the more recent ghostly encounters at Biggin Hill took place in the Chapel of St. George's. While putting together my boom, Haunted Bromley, a man who worked in the building, told me his friend has recently seen the figure of a man in airman attire, but upon investigation, he could not find the mystery figure. Just a few miles from Biggin Hill sits the delightfully named Leaves Green, and the pub here, the Crown Inn, is also said to be haunted by an airman, although sightings seem fleeting. But the main ghost said to haunt the premises is that of a miner who in 1896 suffered a terrible accident in a nearby chalk mine. His broken body was taken to the public house, and it seems as if his restless soul has never left. Like many reputed pub ghosts, the spectre is said to be responsible for the creaking floorboards, flickering lights, unnatural cold spots, and the occasional object that seems to move of its own accord. One thing, however, that I've often found odd regarding the apparitions of the planes and other vehicles is as to why they never seem to get a sighting of the pilot or driver floating in midair on his own. Why should a pilot who died in a plane appear with an object that clearly has no soul? And yet there are numerous cases of ghostly planes, cars, buses, and bikes, etc. The ghost plane of Derbyshire. Okay, so this isn't my story. This is my grandma's story. She was looking out of the window one day a few years ago. Cannot remember whether this was at her house or while she was out on holiday, when suddenly she saw an old army plane. It was flying super low, like scarily low, and coming straight for the building. My grandma was kind of frozen in fear and kept watching, but as the plane reached the building, it phased through. She believes this was a ghost plane. My mum was also there this day, even though she didn't see the exact moment, and she believes my grandma. I did a quick Google search, and there is a ghost plane in Derbyshire that people have been reportedly seeing for years. The Savannah Hilton Head International Airport. Savannah Hilton Head International Airport is a commercial and military use airport in Savannah, Georgia. During World War II, the United States military saw the need to expand its facilities. The U.S. government leased 1,100 acres of land, and this is now SAV, also Savannah Hilton Head International Airport. Shortly after the lease, because people abbreviate everything nowadays, and it drives me crazy. Shortly after the lease, the government began to obtain additional acreage to further increase its size. One of the pieces of land that was acquired had been used as a private family cemetery, which contained more than 100 graves. After the Dotsons' great-grandchildren negotiated with the government, they were able to relocate most of the graves to a different cemetery. Only 4 graves are left at the airport. The original owners of the land, Richard and Catherine Dotson, along with 2 beloved relatives, Daniel Houston and John Dotson. To this day, the 4 graves remain next to the airport's most active runway. Pilots and airport staff who work at Savannah Hilton Head Airport often talk about common sightings. Word has it that if you land shortly after sunset, 2 figures will sometimes appear along the north side of the runway. Many believe they are the ghosts of Richard and Catherine Dotson. However, they seem to be good-natured ghosts, as apart from the 2 figures occasionally appearing, nothing untoward has really happened. We'd like to think that Richard and Catherine Dotson are just giving the planes a warm welcome, and that they might have even become aviation geeks. Bangkok International Airport. Thailand is not just known as the land of smiles. To many, it is also the land of ghosts. Belief in ghosts and the supernatural are a big part of Thai culture. Generally, Thais believe that ghosts inhabit certain trees, cemeteries, shrines, and abandoned spaces. If you happen to be in Thailand, you don't need to search far and wide for spirits, as it seems that the Thai capital's airport, Bangkok, Suvarnabhumi, is one of the most haunted places in Bangkok. BKK, I guess I'll go with that one because I can't pronounce the other name of it, is not actually that old. It opened in 2006 when it replaced the old capital airport, Don Mueang Airport. However, BKK was built on marshland that was drained in order to make way for construction. As it happens, part of the area that BKK was built upon was an ancient cemetery. As soon as construction began, workers started to report things that were out of the ordinary. Some even said that, out of nowhere, they suddenly heard screams, chanting, and wailing. Others often reported hearing Thai classical music being played randomly. This caused great distress among the workers, with some of them reportedly quitting on the spot. Many religious officials believed that the construction of the airport angered the spirits whose bodies were buried in the ancient cemetery beneath the airport. Nevertheless, the airport was completed, and in 2006 it was officially opened, but not before a 9-week exorcism rite took place, which involved 99 Buddhist monks. There are way too many reported ghost sightings in BKK to enumerate one by one. However, the most popular ghost to haunt the terminals of BKK is Pu Ming, who made an appearance during the exorcism rite. He managed to enter a baggage porter's body and introduced himself as the caretaker of the ancient cemetery. Pu Ming is so well known in BKK that he is referred to as the Blue Man, because those who have seen him claim to have all described him walking with a cane and having a blue complexion. And then there's the so-called Haunted Honda, A deserted Honda has been left in the parking space of BKK Airport for years. Now covered in dust, the car remains unmoved, and people offer flowers and other sacred items to the ghost driver. Rumor has it that the man who rented the car died in a crash and will not leave the Honda alone. BKK Airport is so infamously rife with ghost sightings, ghost enthusiasts have already created forums dedicated to their respective experiences at the airport. The Daniel Inouye International Airport in Honolulu, Hawaii. Honolulu's Daniel Inouye International Airport opened in 1927. Because it has lived through World War II, we assumed that there will be tales of wartime pilot ghosts. But the spooks at the Daniel Inouye International turned out to be the haunting pain of a broken heart. Legend dictates that a woman once fell deeply in love with a man who promised to marry her. The man boarded an international flight and never returned. The woman was so heartbroken that she took her own life. The ghost of the heartbroken lady is now such a common sighting at the airport that she has been dubbed the Lady in Waiting. Ray Duropan, a police officer who served 17 years at the Honolulu Police Department, was assigned to the airport for 2 years in the 90s. Duropan reported to local media that he would receive numerous calls about a blonde lady at the gate, looking out the window on the runway, and so waiting for an arrival. Duropan would also take calls from people telling him that the lady in waiting can also be seen in restricted areas at the airport, looking like she is waiting in agony. Duropan has never seen the lady in waiting, but calls and reports he has received about the specter were enough to convince him that the spirit of the ghosted woman is still indeed waiting for her fiancé's return. Lady in waiting aside, the airport is filled with other bizarre sightings and experiences, specifically in the airport's bathroom stalls. Airport custodians would be cleaning empty bathrooms in the middle of the night and report seeing toilet rolls unravel and seats slam shut abruptly. There are also reports of toilets flushing by themselves. What about the always evil, wicked Denver International Airport in Colorado? Denver International Airport opened in 1995 and is rife with myths, legends, and conspiracy theories. Spanning 135 square kilometers, Denver International Airport is the largest airport in the United States. Since its opening, locals have held various conspiracy theories about the airport, including that the airport hub boasts secret tunnels as a bunker and even a connection to the Nazis. There has been speculation about whether the Illuminati or Freemasons are behind the airport. Yeah, because they are, and they got that big evil red-eyed horse sitting out in front of there and everything. Among all the haunted airports, Denver is one that is happy to provide the fuel to fire its conspiracy theories. The airport even runs numerous exhibits about its haunted past, with the last exhibit taking place in 2019. And I recently saw a thing about all these exhibits being taken down. So that's kind of odd in itself. But Denver is not famous for actual ghosts, but mysterious objects and theories that fan the wild imagination of conspiracy enthusiasts worldwide. If you happen to be in Denver, we urge you to find a mysterious time capsule that was buried in 1994, with instructions to only be opened 100 years later in 2094. And then there's also the red-eyed blue Mustang sculpture, previously noted, which many claim to be possessed by an evil spirit. Aptly named Blucifer, some believe that the horse represents one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. However, what's more alarming is how the creator of the sculpture, Luis Jimenez, died when the horse's head fell on him in 2006, severing a major artery in his leg. Denver is certainly more than happy to embrace its reputation as a mysterious airport, running exhibitions and tours and providing media coverage, especially during this time of year. Islamabad International Airport in Pakistan. Unlike other haunted airports in this episode, which have been operating for decades or, in some cases, even 100 years, Islamabad International is the newest, having only been opened in 2018. Local media reports that laborers working on the new airport had several spooky encounters, the most being feeling an invisible pressure on their chests. Apparently, the paranormal activity also caused some security guards to faint, the report said. As the airport was just built in 2018, ghost sightings of the airport are still quite new and scattered all over local forums. Plenty of people remarked that the airport has a heavy feeling. One standout story is how pilots in particular are the only ones who have witnessed specific sightings. Pilots landing at the airport have reported seeing children playing cricket on the runway, yet no actual children are there, and the cricket playing ghosts appear to only be visible to pilots. And with that, we are woefully out of time. Thanks for listening. We'll see you again right here next week. God bless.